Coming up on this Tuesday edition of Newsline at Noon, a senior U.S. official acknowledges that North Korea has already developed nuclear weapons and urges the international community to stop Iran from taking a similar path. The South Korean government is due to name the winner of a multi-billion-dollar fighter jet tender today, with Boeing's F-15 Silent Eagle being the sole qualified candidate, but a controversy surrounding the fighter's capacity could force a new tender. Plus, 3 terrorists who raided a shopping mall in Nairobi have been killed by Kenyan security forces as the siege nears an end. The official death toll now stands at 62. These stories and more on Newsline at Noon.
Where's the best place for bibimbap?
Les Jeux Olympiques d'hiver se dérouleront-ils à Pyeongchang?
هل أنتم حقاً سابع أكبر مصدر في العالم؟
この歌手は誰ですか？你好，最近哪部电视剧的人气最旺？
Korea is attracting interest from around the world. The more you know, the more you want to know. Dynamic Korea.
Thanks for joining us. You're watching Newsline at Noon. I'm Choi Yusan in Seoul.
Very good to have you with us. I'm Mark Brew, and we start with a flurry of North Korea-related developments. A high-level US official has acknowledged that North Korea has nuclear weapons in its possession and advised that the international community prevent Iran from taking a similar path.
The recognition comes as recent satellite images revealed Pyongyang may have conducted a long-range rocket engine test. Kim Young-gil reports.
U.S. Deputy National Security Advisor Ben Rhodes, on his way to attend the UN General Assembly on Monday, told reporters that North Korea already possesses nuclear weapons. Rhodes pointed out that unlike Iran, Pyongyang has already developed nuclear arms and conducted tests. Because of this, he said it may be easier to handle Iran than North Korea. The senior U.S. official said there are similarities between Pyongyang and Tehran in that both nations have not abided by international non-proliferation norms. Meanwhile, 2 U.S. experts on nuclear weapons, Joshua Pollack and Scott Kemp, say North Korea has obtained technology to produce crucial components of gas centrifuges to process uranium for making nuclear bombs. They said it could become more difficult to verify regime's nuclear facilities because uranium enrichment facilities are easier to conceal than large reactors used in making plutonium-based bombs. Also, in a flurry of North Korea-related developments, recent satellite imagery shows North Korea may have conducted a long-range rocket engine test late last month at its Dongchangni launch site off the northwest coast. 38 North, a website devoted to analysis of North Korea, said Monday that it had compared 2 satellite images which appeared to show a probable rocket stage, a crane to mount and remove the rocket engine, and monitoring instruments. Dongchangni was where Pyongyang launched its Eunha-3 long-range rocket last December. Kim Young-gil, Arirang News.
At the nation's parliament, the main opposition Democratic Party has launched a new campaign, a 2-track campaign that includes the opening of a 24-hour headquarters within the National Assembly on one side and a national tour led by party leader Kim Han-gil on the other. The campaign is aimed at looking after the livelihoods of ordinary people and restoring democracy, and was kicked off with a ceremony in downtown Seoul on Tuesday. Party leader Kim Han-gil plans to visit 17 cities and regions nationwide and will collect area residents' views on the government's plan to scale back President Park Geun-hye's welfare pledges. The remaining DP lawmakers will launch a 24-hour work system in parliament. The ruling Saenuri Party has expressed concerns about the DP's decision to continue its outdoor campaign and plans to set up a situation room within Parliament to monitor the party's activities. The Seoul High Court has ordered the indictment of 2 people linked to allegations the National Intelligence Service meddled in last year's presidential election. They are former NIS agent Lee Jong-myung, who was in charge of information gathering and strategy on North Korea, and Min Byung-ju, former head of the psychological warfare team. The court's decision came upon the request of the main opposition Democratic Party, which claims the 2 have violated the nation's election law. The 2 will likely face a trial along with former NIS chief Won Se-hoon, who was indicted in June for his involvement in the scandal. After months of deliberations, the final winner of Korea's multi-billion-dollar fighter jet deal will be announced today. While Boeing's F-15 Silent Eagle stands as the sole candidate that meets the government's budget, there's a whirlwind of controversy around the F-15's performance and technological prowess or lack thereof. Our Defense Ministry correspondent Han Da-eun reports.
Will Boeing's F-15 Silent Eagle rule the skies over the Korean peninsula for decades to come? The model now stands as the sole candidate for the nation's $7.3 billion fighter jet project, elbowing out 2 other competitors with its competitive price tag. But controversy still rages over the model's supposed unsatisfactory performance and capabilities. Although the jet has garnered wide acclaim for its vast improvement in internal weapons carriage and attack capability over the years, its limited stealth features have been highlighted as its biggest weakness. And as the upgraded model, which is based on the 40-year-old original, is still in the development stage, some senior Air Force officials are strongly against selecting the F-15 as Korea's next-generation fighter jet. Despite rumblings of discontent within the military, the Defense Acquisition Procurement Administration is forging ahead with the selection process. Officials will hold a final meeting presided over by Defense Minister Kim Kwan-jin this Tuesday afternoon and discuss whether to name the F-15 as the official winner.
We will hold a meeting to finalize a model selection process. We are unlikely to hold additional meetings after this final meeting.
Defense acquisition officials say the deal can no longer be delayed as it could leave a huge hole in Korea's air defense capability. But the finalization process still looks fraught with complications, as the F-15 is seen by many experts as an ineffective deterrent to North Korea and other potential foes due to its weak stealth capacity. Han Da-eun, Arirang News.
Now, with President Park Geun-hye's budget plan for next year slated to be announced this week, many expect the president to announce a scale back of key campaign pledges, particularly those involving basic pension benefits. Our presidential correspondent Oh Jin-ju has the details.
President Park at this point has little to no choice but to scale down her welfare policy goals, with her administration facing difficulties securing the funds needed to fulfill her campaign pledges. The government is expected to face strong backlash from not only the opposition party, but also from the public over its budget proposal for next year, which is scheduled to be submitted at a cabinet meeting presided over by the president on Thursday. The proposal is expected to include plans to reduce welfare spending, especially for basic pension payouts. President Park had originally promised to give 200,000 won, or $186 per month, to all Koreans aged 65 and older. However, it now appears that the government will only provide a maximum of $186 to just 70 to 80% of the people in that age bracket in accordance with their financial status. Then why the change? If the government hands out $186 to all of the people in the age group, it would cost the government $5.6 billion in the first year the plan takes effect. By 2020, the figure would jump nearly 5 times and even 27 times more by the year 2040. Taking responsibility for not being able to fulfill the pledge, Health Minister Chin Young is expected to announce his resignation after he returns from his trip to Saudi Arabia this week. The presidential office of Chungwa said Monday that President Park will comment on the controversial welfare pledges at Thursday's cabinet meeting. Pundits predict the president will use the opportunity to seek support and understanding from the public, explaining how it is almost impossible to secure the money that is needed to keep her welfare promises. Oh Jin-ju, Arirang News.
With Korea's national debt drawing ever nearer to 500 trillion won, that's 465 billion US dollars, the annual cost of just paying the interest on that debt has reached a staggering $19 billion. That means for every single Korean has to bear over $370 as interest payments for the government debt. And this is according to data released on Tuesday by the Finance Ministry in the National Assembly's Strategy and Finance Committee. The government's interest expenses have accounted for only around 6% of its fiscal budget since 2006, but this percentage jumped to 7.7% this year. Experts attribute the increase to a surge in government spending during the global financial crisis and have voiced concerns that the surge in interest payments could eventually push up the government debt again, negatively affecting the country's fiscal soundness. Now, Korea is constantly striving to boost its tourist appeal, and it appears to be working on our neighbours in China. As new data shows, a record number of Chinese tourists visited Korea over the last 3 months. The Korea Tourism Organization said Tuesday that roughly 640,000 Chinese nationals visited Korea last month, an increase of 78% compared to the same month last year. The KTO also said the number of visitors to Korea has remained in the upper 70% range from year to year, setting a new record for 3 consecutive months. Experts cited the peak holiday season and tourists wanting to stay clear of Japan because of fears of possible radiation exposure as the reasons for the increase in Chinese visitors.
For your fill of Korean and international news, join Chae Yu-sun and Mark Broom every weekday at lunchtime. Newsline at Noon.
Plenary session this Wednesday and vote on the government restructuring bills.
Relations between Seoul and Tokyo have been frosty at best for many months, but the two sides could be taking a step toward thawing relations a touch as the foreign ministers of Korea and Japan are expected to sit down for talks in New York at the end of this week. Japan's Kyodo News Agency reported Monday that Korean Foreign Minister Yoon Byung-se and his Japanese counterpart Fumio Kishida are making arrangements to meet this Friday on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly. The agency added Japan will likely attempt to form a cordial atmosphere to realize the first Korea-Japan summit talks between President Park Geun-hye and Prime Minister Shinzo Abe amid soured bilateral relations over a string of historical issues. Following on from that story, Japan's Prime Minister Shinzo Abe is scheduled to speak at the UN General Assembly this week, where he will reportedly pledge around $1 million to help Japan's wartime victims of sexual assault. And for more details, here's our Paul Yi.
The UN General Assembly opened this week with heads of state and other high government officials set to present their views on the world's most pressing issues. Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe is scheduled to make his address in New York on September 26. Prime Minister Abe will also seek meetings with world leaders on the sidelines of the UN's open session. Japanese newspapers say Abe's upcoming speech at the UN will likely focus on human rights issues. Tokyo has been increasingly under fire in recent months and years for failing to sincerely acknowledge the atrocities carried out by Japanese forces during World War II. Abe will reportedly announce that Japan will earmark approximately $1 million in its annual budget to assist women who suffer from sexual violence. The money is expected to be managed by the International Criminal Court and will mainly support those affected by war in Africa. It's a stark contrast to the cold response given to the Korean government. Seoul has repeatedly called on Tokyo to resolve claims by Korean women who were forced into sexual slavery during World War II through a sincere apology and reparations. Abe's cabinet has denied that the Japanese military coerced women to serve in military brothels. Meanwhile, South Korean Foreign Minister Yoon Byung-se will make his keynote speech the following day on the 27th. Government sources say there is a high possibility that Yoon will bring up the so-called comfort women issue during his address. In addition, Yoon is expected to meet with Japanese Foreign Minister Fumio Kishida to discuss ways to thaw icy relations between the two countries. Paul Yi, Arirang News.
The smoke has cleared and the ringing of gunfire has stopped, as it appears as though the four-day standoff in an upscale Kenyan shopping mall is nearing an end. Kenyan officials say all of the hostages have been freed and 3 militants were killed during an assault on Monday. Our Kim Min-ji has the latest.
Kenyan officials said early Tuesday that all of the hostages held inside an upscale shopping mall in Nairobi, Kenya have been rescued and their forces are in control of the mall.
All floors now are under our control. I also confirm that we have fully cordoned the building so that there is no room for escape.
Heavy gunfire and sporadic explosions were heard at the Westgate shopping mall early Monday morning as Kenyan forces launched a final assault on the building both from the air and on the ground. 3 Islamic militants were also confirmed dead after security forces stormed the besieged shopping mall, while about a dozen gunmen were arrested. A number of gunmen are still thought to be hiding inside the building. The Kenyan government believes that the group of armed militants includes foreigners from around the world. The al-Qaeda-linked terrorist group Al-Shabaab, which has claimed responsibility for the attack, had previously released the names of 9 of the attackers, with the list showing that 3 were from the U.S., 2 were from Somalia, and 1 each was from Canada, Finland, Kenya, and Britain. The Somali militant group said the deaths were retribution for Kenyan military operations in Somalia. The gunmen opened fire at the upscale shopping mall on Saturday around noon local time, killing at least 62 people and injuring over 170. A 38-year-old Korean woman, Kang Moon-hee, is among the dead. Seoul's foreign ministry says Kang recently moved to Kenya with her British husband, who is currently recovering at a nearby hospital. Meanwhile, the international community has strongly denounced the attack. The U.S. State Department has called it a senseless act of violence, while the United Nations, France, and Britain have all offered to provide the necessary assistance. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
And in response to the instability in the region, Russian President Vladimir Putin has warned former Soviet bloc countries that the Islamist insurgency in countries like Syria and Afghanistan could spill over into the wider region, and he is urging them to strengthen their borders. Our Kim Ji-yeon reports.
Russian President Vladimir Putin told former Soviet allies that the violence in Syria and Afghanistan could have a direct effect on their interests. At a meeting of the Collective Security Treaty Organization in the port city of Sochi on Monday, Putin said the problem of terrorism spilling from one country to another is absolutely real and could have a direct effect on their countries, citing the deadly attack in Nairobi as an example. Tajikistan, a CSTO member state, shares a border with Afghanistan, and most members of the regional bloc have large Muslim populations. In response, the CSTO members agreed to come up with a plan to strengthen border security ahead of the planned pullout of foreign troops from Afghanistan scheduled in 2014. Leaders of the CSTO nations also issued a joint statement for the peaceful resolution of the crisis in Syria, saying that foreign military intervention in Syria was unacceptable without the approval of the UN Security Council. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
An Egyptian court has banned the Muslim Brotherhood and ruled that the Islamist party's assets should be confiscated. The Cairo Court for Urgent Matters said Monday that its ruling also applied to the Brotherhood's non-governmental organisation and any affiliated groups. All of the movement's funds and assets will be taken under state control. The move is just the latest escalation in a broad crackdown on the Muslim Brotherhood in the 3 months since the military ousted its ally, Mohamed Morsi, from the presidency. Most of the Brotherhood's leadership, including its spiritual leader, Mohamed Badieh, are being held on charges of inciting violence and murder.
We may be seeing a semblance of an economic recovery in the Eurozone, but serious doubts remain about its ability to stay on track. On the positive side, Market Economics Composite Purchasing Managers Index, a gauge of business activity across the Eurozone's manufacturing and service sectors, jumped to an over two-year high of 52.1 for September. This rise coincided with the Eurozone posting a modest 0.3% expansion in the second quarter after 18 straight months of recession. However, European Central Bank President Mario Draghi was keen to temper optimism Monday, saying that although a slow recovery is underway, it still needs to be firmly established as unemployment across large parts of Europe is sky high. Beleaguered Canadian smartphone maker Blackberry has agreed to be acquired for $4.7 billion by a private equity consortium led by its largest shareholder, Fairfax Financial. Blackberry says Fairfax has agreed to pay shareholders $9 per share, but added it will continue to explore other options until the deal is finalized. Reports of the takeover come just a couple of days after Blackberry announced it was slashing 4,500 jobs, over a third of its workforce. Blackberry also said it lost nearly $1 billion in the second quarter after disappointing sales of its new handsets. Mark, it's certainly the autumn season now here in the capital.
Yeah.
Well, why don't we get an update on the weather now with our Lee Ji-yeon standing by at the Weather Center. Good afternoon to you, Ji-yeon.
Well, hello there, guys. Now, with cooler days on the horizon, this is the perfect time to reorganize your closet. Sounds fun, right?
No, not really. It's something very unique to Korea, I find. We never do this back in the UK, maybe because the seasons are so much more extreme here. But it really is a bit of a pain, but quite fun finding all those old clothes that you haven't worn in a while. What about you, Son?
Well, it's a daunting task for me, but I guess it is time now to switch from summer clothes now to fall clothes.
Yeah. Well, that's right.
And time for some shopping.
That sounds good. Well, if you're planning to do some of the working on your closet, these tips might help. First, you should decide which clothes you want to keep, donate, or throw away so you know how much space you have. And second, try to hang up as many of your clothes as you can to make it easier to find things and to conserve space. I know it's only Tuesday, but you might want to work on your closet before the weekend comes because things will cool down starting today with rain nationwide. The rain started in the central provinces this morning and it will continue throughout the day, and we're expecting to see 30 to 80 millimeters of rain throughout the day, along with lightning and gusty winds, and the rain will move southern provinces later in the afternoon with 5 to 30 millimeters of rainfall expected. Well, right now, the rain clouds are covering up the northern parts of the peninsula, dropping light to heavy showers at times, and the clouds will be moving into the southern provinces later in the afternoon. So be aware of that, and most of the rain should let up by tonight, but we do expect a few lingering showers in the southern provinces through tomorrow morning. But the good news is, though, that the sky will be much brighter tomorrow in most regions, with afternoon highs hovering in the low to mid-20s across the nation. Well, it's rainy and chilly here in Seoul, so let's take a look at those numbers for the capital and other parts of the nation. Now, the capital will only get up to 23 degrees Celsius today. That's 73 degrees in Fahrenheit. And Daegu, Gwangju, and Busan will have another mild day with lots of clouds. Now let's see how other regions are looking. It looks like Jeju, Daejeon, and Dokdo will get up into the mid to high 20s, and Mount Kumgang will be cool with light showers. Now that's all for Korea, and here's the global forecast for viewers around the world. That's all I have for you today. Enjoy your lunch break and hope you have a wonderful rest of the day. Now back to Mark and Yusan in the studio.
Well, thank you ever so much to Jian, as always, for her lovely weather reporting there. And those are the stories we're following at this hour.
Mark and I will be back tomorrow here on Newsline at Noon.